I'm Bill, and up until the day I found out about the will, I'd had my doubts about where I stood in my family. But that moment, well, it wiped away any uncertainty. It wasn't some dramatic family gathering where my parents sat me down to break the news. No, it was pure, dumb luck that led me to discover it. A few months ago, I was at their place, the same place I'd been helping to pay for over the last 5 years. I've been covering the mortgage, running errands for groceries, fixing things up around the house. Meanwhile, my brother, Frank, did absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean it. No job, no responsibilities, just lounging around, expecting life to hand him everything on a silver platter. And my parents? Well, they were more than happy to indulge him. That day, I was over helping my dad with some paperwork. Typical, they could never be bothered to do anything themselves. He asked me to scan a stack of documents, mostly legal and financial stuff, so I did without thinking twice. And then I saw it. A folder labeled Estate Plan and Last Will and Testament was tucked in the pile. Normally, I'd never snoop, but I couldn't help myself. After all, I was the one making sure they had a roof over their heads. It didn't feel entirely out of line to be curious about how they planned for the future, so I opened it. That's when my stomach dropped. Everything, literally everything, was going to Frank. The house, their savings, their assets. There wasn't a single mention of me, except for some generic line about loving both their sons equally. Oh, really? Equally. That's why they were handing everything over to their golden child, while the one actually keeping them afloat was left out completely. I couldn't help but feel like a sucker. Here I was, doing everything for them, paying their bills, making sure they had food, taking care of their house, while they were planning for a future where I got absolutely nothing. And Frank? He wasn't just lazy. He was downright entitled. He never lifted a finger to help, never contributed a dime. But somehow, he convinced them that he deserved it all. Maybe it was because he was the younger son. Maybe it was because they always babied him. Or maybe it was because he knew exactly how to manipulate them. Whatever the reason they had made their choice, I stared at that paper, my hand shaking with a mix of anger and betrayal. How long had they been planning this? Had they always intended for me to just be their free financial safety net, with nothing in return? Did they even appreciate what I'd done for them? I had no idea how long I'd been sitting there, lost in my thoughts. But eventually, my dad noticed I wasn't scanning any more documents. "Hey, Bill, what's taking so long?" he asked as he walked back into the room. I didn't even try to hide the will. I held it up, looked him square in the eye, and asked, "So, this is how it is? Everything's going to Frank? After everything I've done for you?" For a split second, his face went pale. Then he sighed like I was just some petulant child throwing a tantrum. "Bill, it's not what you think," he muttered. "Really?" I snapped, my voice rising. "Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, buying your groceries, fixing the house, while Frank does absolutely nothing. And you still decided he's the one who matters?" Dad shifted uncomfortably, instead of offering any real explanation. All he said was, "It's complicated." Complicated, that was it. No apology, no explanation, just that one lame excuse. It was like he expected me to just drop it and go back to being their personal bank. I should have walked out right then, but I wasn't done yet. I wanted to hear it from both of them, so I called for my mom. When she came in and saw the will in my hands, her reaction wasn't much better. At least she had the decency to look guilty. But then she said something that made my blood boil. "Bill, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said softly, like she was doing me a favor. "You have a good job. You're independent. Frank, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." That was it. That's when something inside me snapped. They weren't even pretending anymore. They knew exactly what they were doing. And in their eyes, it was completely justified. They had spent years enabling Frank's laziness, and now they were planning to reward it by giving him everything while I got left out like some afterthought. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and put the will down on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice eerily calm, glad to know where we stand. Then, without another word, I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. They'd made their decision. Now it was my turn to make mine. I didn't go back to their house after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in. For the first time in years, I let them handle their own problems. If something needed fixing, they could figure it out themselves. If they needed groceries, they could make their own trip to the store. And most importantly, if that mortgage bill came around again, well, I wasn't the one paying it anymore. The silence stretched on for about 2 weeks. At first, I think they thought I was just throwing a tantrum, that I'd come crawling back like I always did. Maybe they expected me to cool off and apologize for questioning their decision. But when the days dragged on with no word from me, and more importantly, no money, everything shifted. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. The property taxes are due. That was it. No, hey, how have you been? No, sorry for what happened. No, we really appreciate everything you've done for us. Just a cold, transactional message as if nothing had changed, like I was still the family ATM. I stared at the screen, a little amused by how predictable they were. Did they really think they could just demand money from me after everything? That I'd go back to being their financial safety net? Even after they made it clear I was disposable? I typed back calmly. I'm sure Frank will handle it, since the house is his now. It only took 5 minutes for my mom to call. I let the phone ring, refusing to answer. A moment later, another text from my mom popped up. Bill, please don't be like this. We need to talk. Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that the bills were stacking up and the reality of the situation was finally sinking in, I let it sit for an hour before responding. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it. I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I'd made my position crystal clear, and honestly, not a single part of me felt bad about it. But then, of course, Frank had to weigh in. His message came later that evening. And the moment I saw his name flash on my screen, I knew it was going to be obnoxious. Sure enough, when I opened it, his text was dripping with entitlement. Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do. I almost laughed. Not a big deal. He actually thought I didn't have a right to be pissed about this. I fired back. Nah, I think you've got it covered, since you're the favorite and all. He didn't waste any time with a reply. Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man, it's just money. Just money, right? Now that it was his to inherit, suddenly it didn't matter. The hypocrisy was staggering. I couldn't let that slide. Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay for the mortgage, right? Silence. A few minutes later, my mom texted again, but this time she went straight into guilt trip mode. Bill, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us? I had to take a deep breath to stop myself from throwing my phone across the room. Abandoning them? I'd spent years making sure they never had a struggle, all while they coddled Frank and rewarded his laziness. And now, when they finally had to deal with the consequences of their own actions, I was the villain? I wasn't buying it, not this time. I replied, you made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Frank can take care of you. I can almost picture my mom gasping dramatically at that. She always had a flair for playing the victim, even when she was in the wrong. A few minutes later, my dad sent another text, and this one had me seething. We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish. Selfish, that word made my blood boil. I've been bailing them out for years, sacrificing my own money, time, and energy to make their lives easier. I'd done everything a good son was supposed to do. And how did they repay me? By making sure I got nothing in return. And now, when I was finally standing up for myself, I was the one being called selfish. I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and typed back, no, I'm done. Then I turned off my phone. They'd made their decision. Now, they were going to live with it. The silence lasted a day. I knew my parents wouldn't give up that easily, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. The next morning, I woke up to a notification, a bank transfer request. I frowned as I unlocked my phone to check it. It was from my mom. She had sent me a request for money like I was some sort of ATM. The amount? $3,500. I stared at it in disbelief, almost laughing at the audacity. No message, no explanation. Just a cold, shameless request for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't even asking anymore. They were just assuming I'd cave. Without hesitation, I declined the request. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my mom. I let it ring. Then came another text. Bill, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I took my time before responding because it's not my responsibility. Try Frank. Another call, declined. Then another text. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us. Oh, now it was an emergency? After all those years of treating me like a walking wallet, now they were finally facing the consequences of their own actions? I typed back, maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. A few seconds later, my dad chimed in, you're really going to let your parents become homeless? Wow, that one actually made me laugh out loud. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost funny. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be thrown out on the streets. They just didn't want to dip into their own savings because they were so used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day, That night, I got another text from Frank. Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. This entitled little prick really thought he could lecture me? I fired back. You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it? His reply came quickly. You know, I don't have that kind of cash right now. Oh, now it was about affordability? He was perfectly fine with me draining my accounts. But the second it was his turn to help, suddenly, he had nothing to offer. I replied, guess you better figure out then. Bro, you're the one they chose. No response. I went to bed that night feeling oddly at peace, like I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. But the next day, things escalated. I was at work when I got a call from the front desk of my apartment building. Hey, Bill, your parents are here. I nearly dropped my phone. What? She hesitated before adding, they're saying it's an emergency and that you won't answer their calls. Oh my God, they showed up at my apartment just because I stopped paying their bills? I took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of my nose. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. I added. There was an awkward pause before she said, they're being kind of pushy. I clenched my jaw. I don't care, they can leave. I hung up, but immediately got a text from my mom. We're downstairs, open the door. No question, no explanation, just another demand. I didn't reply. Then came another text. Bill, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I exhaled sharply and stood up from my desk. They weren't going to back down, fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared, was furious. The sheer audacity of these people to show up at my home, uninvited, demanding money like I was their personal ATM. Not even a phone call first, not even a half-hearted apology, just a full-on ambush. They really thought they could just corner me into submission like I was some naive kid. I yanked the door open. There they were, Mom, Dad, and of course Frank, standing in a tight little formation like they were about to stage a family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, that classic disappointed mother look locked and loaded. Dad was standing stiff, hands in his pockets, looking like he couldn't believe he had to do this in person. And Frank? The little leech had the nerve to look bored, like this whole situation was just mildly inconvenient for him, like he wasn't the reason any of this was happening. The moment Mom saw me, she went full theatrics. Bill, finally, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. No, you need to leave. She blinked, as if she physically couldn't comprehend what I had just said. Excuse me. You heard me. My voice was calm, controlled, but firm. You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane. Dad let out a sharp scoff. Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge? I let out a cold laugh. Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge. Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I had just slapped her. Bill, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean best for Frank? Just say it. Silence, a long, heavy silence. Frank, who had been weirdly quiet up until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything. I turned to him, finally letting loose. No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you. You're 28 years old. Frank, get a damn job. His face turned red. Dude, what the hell? I took a step closer. You heard me. You want to inherit the house? Start acting like a homeowner. You want to be the golden child? Start paying their damn bills. I was done being their personal bank. Frank looked away, suddenly very interested in the pavement. Mom took a deep breath, recalibrating her guilt trip. Bill, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep, and I've supported him longer than you ever have. Dad's face darkened. You're being selfish. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two decided that Frank deserved everything and I deserved nothing. And now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you. Not happening. Mom's voice sharpened. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be real, that's what you wanted. Dad stepped forward, trying to loom over me like he used to when I was a kid. Bill, we raised you, we fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I look him dead in the eye. I already did for years. And you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lip trembled. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled, shaking my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that I was never family to you, just a paycheck. Silence again. A suffocating, undeniable silence. I turned to Frank, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you, what's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute, but you didn't because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expected me to step in, huh? Frank finally snapped. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. Right? You didn't ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened, then closed. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Bill, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her for a long moment before answering. Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze. No words, no comeback, nothing. I let out a slow breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. Before I even made it back to my couch, my phone buzzed, a new text from Dad. Wow. After everything we've done for you, you're really gonna abandon us. I smirked, typing back. No, you abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I hit send, then I blocked their numbers. But I had no idea that blocking them would only make things worse. Less than a day after I blocked them, I started seeing posts on Facebook. My parents had never been the most tech savvy, but they sure knew how to air their grievances online, especially when they were feeling self-righteous. At first, I thought it was just my parents being dramatic. I mean, that was their go-to move, airing out family drama for everyone to see. But the longer I scrolled through their feeds, the more I realized this wasn't just about me not helping with bills anymore. The posts were disguised as family love, but they were thinly veiled shots at me. Mom had posted something about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish, and how true family helps each other no matter what. A few of her friends commented along the lines of how I was a disappointment and so out of touch with what really matters. Then, Dad chimed in with his own post. So-called family should never turn their back when you need them most. We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. My son, who should be helping us in our golden years, has chosen to abandon us. He tagged me, adding a passive-aggressive, I hope you're happy at the end of it. But the real kicker came from Frank. I should have known he'd get in on the drama. He shared a post that was brimming with falsehoods. Some people think that family is just about money. They don't understand that family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people just don't get that. They're too wrapped up in themselves to realize that true love is about helping those who raised you. He even threw in a disguised jab at me. I wish some people could learn what it really means to be family. I love my parents, and I'm grateful for everything they've done. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there, staring at the screen in disbelief. How had it gotten to this point? They'd turned this entire situation around, made me the villain. The selfish son who wasn't willing to support his sacrificial parents. The son who didn't appreciate all the love they gave me over the years. How could they? I had always been the one who worked hard, the one who contributed, the one who never complained. I had to swallow the fact that somehow they had convinced themselves they were in the right, and now they were telling everyone that I was the problem. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited for a few hours. I wanted to make sure I didn't rush into something out of anger. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't let them get away with this. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to set the record straight. So I pulled out my phone and started typing. I opened my own Facebook account, the one I kept for close friends and real family. And I posted a lengthy update. I wasn't interested in playing their game. I didn't want to get bogged down in petty back and forths. What I wanted to do was tell the truth. I know I've been quiet for the past couple of days, but I can't stay quiet any longer. My family has been sharing a lot of things online about me that are simply not true. They've portrayed me as the villain, the selfish one who refuses to help my parents in their time of need. I'm here to set the record straight. I've always helped my family. From the moment I could get a job, I've been the one helping with bills, paying for groceries, and supporting them in every way I could. But there comes a point where you can't keep giving without being respected. Over the years, I've watched my parents favor Frank, giving him everything, the house, the money, the attention. Meanwhile, I was expected to just keep giving without ever being considered as equal. I'm sure some of you might be reading this and thinking, well, that's just how family works. But here's the truth. Family should be a two-way street. When I found out that my parents left everything to Frank in their will, I realized how one-sided this entire relationship had been. They didn't even consider me, not even for a moment. They made it clear that I'm the one they can rely on when things go wrong. but never the one they actually want around unless it's convenient for them. For years, I've been the one funding their lifestyle. I've paid for vacations, chipped in for bills, and even helped out with things like property taxes. And for what? To be treated like a backup plan? I'm done. I'm not just some wallet they can dip into whenever they need money. I'm a human being, and I deserve respect. I've earned the right to be treated like I matter, not just when they want something from me. As for Frank, it's time for him to grow up. He's 28 years old, and he's never worked a day in his life. He's never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have enabled him for so long that it's no surprise they favor him. But here's the thing. He's had more than enough time to get his life together. Now it's time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. To everyone who's been following this drama and supporting my parents, you need to understand that there are always two sides to every story. Yes, family is important, but it's also about mutual respect. I've given enough for a lifetime, and I'm not going to apologize for stepping back. This isn't me turning my back on family. This is me finally choosing myself. And to my parents, I wish you the best. But I am done being your doormat. I hit post, and immediately, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was telling the world the truth about my family. How they had taken advantage of me for years. How they'd always expected me to save them. Without ever considering what I needed, I wasn't going to let their narrative control my life anymore. The reactions came quickly. Some people, whom I hadn't spoken to in years, reached out to express their support. A few cousins, friends of my parents, even some distant relatives liked the post and sent me private messages telling me they were sorry for what I had been through. It felt so freeing to finally get the truth out there, no longer buried under guilt trips and manipulative behavior. But then came the backlash. My parents and Frank went ballistic. Frank messaged me, calling me a traitor. You really had to air all our business like this? You have no respect for family. Dad called, practically yelling into the phone. You've ruined everything, Bill. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family. But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. I blocked them all. I was done. And for the first time in my life, I was free from the toxic grip they'd had on me for so long. As the days passed, I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. I was done with being treated as less than. I was done being the one expected to fix everyone else's problems. And now, I finally had the freedom to live my own life on my terms. So no, I don't feel bad for cutting them off. I deserve better, I still do. From now on, I'm choosing to surround myself with people who appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. It's time for me to move forward for good, and I will. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.